back to another video. Today I'm going to share with you some easy weeknight dinners. I don't know about you, but when I think easy weeknight dinners, I think like 15 minutes or less. Minimal dishes, minimal effort, and things that we have already in our pantry, fridge, and freezer. So there's minimal grocery shopping as well. So let's jump into tonight's recipe, which is a fajita stuffed shells bake. From start to finish, it should take you about 12 minutes to throw together. So let's go. Okay, so like I said, the first recipe is stuffed shells. Here's what I'm using for the recipe. Obviously, shells. Now this box is already open. Disclaimer, I got this for a $3 dinners recipe probably about a month and a half ago, and we still have about half the box left, and I thought, perfect way to use it up. You're also going to use a large can of either crushed tomatoes or petite diced tomatoes. I'm using petite diced because that's what my store had when I went shopping. I always try to keep these on hand. I'd like to make my own homemade marinara. I will also type the recipe for that in the description box as well. The other only ingredient you're going to need is some vegetables, and I'm actually using some frozen veggies that I cut and chop for a freezer meal prep about a week ago. I have some onions that are smelling so oniony, like really oniony, but I chopped a whole bunch of these, and I also chopped some bell peppers. I have orange and red on hand. You can use anything you'd like. If you want to add some red onions, that would be super good. I tend to like white or yellow a little bit more than red, but that's all we're going to use for today's recipe, plus some taco seasoning. So let's get started. The first thing I did was get my veggies going. I like to saute them in water. I don't cook with any oil, that's a personal preference, and then I popped a lid on them so that they cook a little bit faster. I then started on my homemade marinara, which I will leave the recipe typed in the description box below. Plus, for this video, I actually had made a homemade taco sauce the night before. I'll also leave that recipe in the description box. I started making my own homemade marinara a couple of months ago when we were being really extreme with our grocery budget, and I will never go back to canned marinara. I think this tastes so much better, and I think the secret ingredient is actually the nutritional yeast. It probably costs about the same as a can of marinara, but it tastes so much better, and I think the consistency is better, so I just keep making it. And I actually have a big bag of it frozen on hand right now so I can use it for pizza sauce, but I decided to go ahead and whip up a batch just for this recipe to share it with you, because if you haven't seen this recipe, it's definitely something you need to keep in your arsenal. This was my first time using and making homemade taco seasoning, and I just got a recipe off of Pinterest, and then I added the secret ingredient of nutritional yeast, and I really liked it. I did add a little bit of cornstarch, so when it cooks up, it does thicken really nicely. That is something you can take away if you don't want to do that, but as you can see here, it does thicken, and it was delicious. So I actually went ahead and popped this into my oven. You don't have to do that, but for me and my nighttime routine and my schedule, I wanted to keep it warm. Instead, if you are not going to keep it warm and you're going to eat it right away, it would warm up the sauce and then put the ingredients all together, and then you can eat it right away. But I did pop it in my oven to warm it. I just put it in there at about 250 degrees until we were ready to eat, because this night we didn't actually eat until an hour after I made this. And it probably seems silly to make a quick meal and then let it warm up for so long, but that just works really well for me in my nighttime routine. And that way, when I'm done running for the evening, I have a hot, fresh meal ready to go, and I don't have to think about it, and it keeps my life very, very simple. I know what you're thinking. Wait, she said 15 minutes or less. Why is she putting this in the oven? Well, to be completely honest with you, we're not eating for another hour. So even though this took me less than 12 minutes to put together, boiling the water, cooking the pasta, making the veggies, I am throwing it in the oven because we're not eating for another hour. So it's just gonna kind of go on warm. If you're gonna eat it right away, I would actually put it all together in the pot and let the sauce heat up with the pasta. So So that way you don't have to cook it again once it's already been cooked or warm it or whatever. You can also put your marinara in a sauce pot on the stovetop. That way you can warm up while your veggies are going. And if you don't want to do a traditional marinara, you can put the taco seasoning in the marinara sauce and kind of give it more of a fiesta kind of flair. But that is dinner for tonight. I'll show you what it looks like all plated up when it comes out of the oven for us. This dinner was really good. I would give it an 8 out of 10. The shells were cooked perfectly, and we are big pasta lovers here. So I try to come up with new ways to make pasta constantly because it's something we probably eat 3 to 4 times a week, plus lunches and leftovers. And this was really good leftover as well. There was a little bit left over and I had it for lunch the next day. I highly recommend giving this recipe a try. Tonight I'm going to actually make breakfast for dinner, and I think I've never shared this on my channel before, but it's something we do often, especially because we eat really late. Like I talked about a little bit, typically I like my dinners to be like 15 minutes or less, and I do have a very specific nighttime routine. If you followed me for a while, you know that I'm an everyday runner. I was running early in the morning, but this spring I kind of changed up my routine a little bit. So what I like to do when I come home from work is get dinner all ready to go, and either I'll prep it and set it aside and then make it when I'm done with my nighttime routine, or like last night, I'll make everything and then pop it in the oven so it's warm and ready to go when we are ready to eat. But tonight for breakfast for dinner, I don't think I've ever shared anything like this before, and I'm excited to share with you a pancake bake with some tofu scramble, something super easy that I think your whole family will love, and it's super budget friendly too, which is also something that I keep in mind even when I don't share a video with a dollar amount. Budget is always on the forefront of my mind with my meals, along with time and convenience. So for tonight's ingredients, I do have some frozen berries, strawberries and peaches. They're a little bit freezer burnt, but they will be just fine. We're gonna need some flour, baking soda, baking powder. You're gonna need some lemon juice, of course some tofu. I do have this almond vanilla milk from Daily Harvest. It's been in my freezer for a little bit. I keep it on hand. It was gifted to me like a year ago. It's still good. It's these little packets of condensed almond milk, and I like to keep them on hand for recipes when I don't have any almond milk on hand in the fridge. You're also going to need some seasonings of your choice. Plus, I am going back to the peppers and onions that I used last night because the reason I cut them up in the freezer is so I could use them again. But let's get started by first popping on our oven. You're going to turn on to 425 degrees. You don't have to make pancake bake if you don't want to. You can make pancakes. But again, with my nighttime routine, I find that putting stuff in the oven and kind of walking away is super helpful for me. So I'm going to pop that in. This only takes about 12 to 15 minutes to bake. As long as your oven bakes really hot, like mine gets things done super fast, but you know your oven a little bit better than mine. So of course, make sure it's baked all the way through, but it's a very thin pancake bake, so it bakes very fast. This homemade strawberry and peach pancake syrup, if you will, with a little bit of lemon was so good. It was actually inspired from another YouTube video that I watched of a Mennonite lady that was making strawberry jam. And I was like, you know, that would be really good on top of pancakes. And she even said in the video, like, it would be really good on top of pancakes or waffles. So I tried my own little version. I just took frozen fruits and put them in a sauce pot with some water. I did about a cup of water to 2 cups of fruit, which was what was recommended, and then about a 1/4 cup of lemon juice. But I made the mistake of grabbing my bread flour when I went to make my pancake bake. So it was kind of dense and not fluffy like it should be. So definitely use all-purpose flour. You can use white or whole wheat, it doesn't matter. And then about a teaspoon of baking soda, baking powder, and a bunch of cinnamon. And then I do about a 2-to-1 ratio, so about 2 cups of flour to about 1 cup of water. But keep in mind, just like bread, pancake mix, when you're making it for either pancakes or for pancake bake, can be a little bit fickle just depending if it's hot or humid. So you might need to add a little bit more water just depending on the climate that you're in. But I find a 2-to-1 ratio is usually perfect for me. And then I did go ahead and put it in my favorite little baking dish. I do spray it with some avocado spray because I don't want it to stick. And I want it to come out very simple and easy. If you have a silicone baking dish, that works good too. And then I popped it in my oven, and this was actually done in about 11 minutes.
I did end up putting it at 450 degrees instead of 425, but I'll actually type the recipe and leave it in the description box. That way you can just screenshot it and save it and make it, and then tag me over on Instagram when you do.
Now that my pancake bake is in the oven, I'm gonna get back to the things that are on the stove. It looks like the berries are about done. I will put a lid on those and let those just kind of keep warm on the stovetop. But I am going to go ahead and cook down the water that I put in with my onions and peppers, and then add my tofu, and I'll probably do the same thing. I will probably put a lid on it and just let it keep warm while the pancake bake finishes.
For the tofu scramble, I just make sure my veggies are done first, and then I slice open the tofu container, I drain it slightly, and then I just slice the tofu in the container and then add it to my pan. You can slice it as small as you'd like. Basically, I'm just adding the tofu with the little bit of liquid that's on it. I don't bother, drying it off because I want it to hold the seasoning. And then I kind of will like smush it up a little bit, but kind of leave it chunky, almost like it would be like a scrambled egg, I guess. And then I just add all of my seasonings and basically heat it up, and it takes about 2 to 3 minutes. It's super easy and delicious. If you're like someone who likes eggs, I never liked eggs when I was an animal product eater, I guess, so this is way better to me. But you just kind of put your seasonings on them and warm them up, and it's so delicious. This pancake bake syrup was so good. The pancake bake, like I said, I used bread flour. It was a little dense, but it was still delicious. It was still edible. It just wasn't as light and fluffy as I had expected it to be, and then I realized, oh no, it's because I used bread flour. But I went ahead and sprinkled some chives, so we got a little bit of color on the top. Fresh green onion is way better, by the way, but I didn't have any on hand. And then this was dinner tonight. It was super good. Like I said, breakfast for dinner is really fun, and this takes less than 15 minutes to throw together, and you have so many flavors going on that I'm sure you'll really enjoy it.
Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope it inspired you to cook a meal or two at home this week. Maybe it gave you a new idea, or maybe it just entertained you for a few minutes while you were doing cardio, because that's when I watch YouTube. But I will have lots more dinner inspiration videos up later this week, so stay tuned. I'll have one up on Tuesday and one up on Thursday, and I cannot wait to share with you more meal ideas. Have an awesome day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!